Thank you, Mr. Srinivasan, for setting up the rhythm with such an insightful address. Without further ado, let's advance to our first discussion, and what better topic than artificial intelligence. AI-related research began in 1950 and was focused on issues such as symbolic methods and problem solving. As AI continues to evolve, focus is also increasing on its accessibility, considering the significant role it plays in championing equal opportunities for all. To share more light, I am delighted to invite Mr. Kartik Sawhney, co-founder iSTEM, who is joining us virtually from US to talk about accessibility and promise of AI. May I request everybody to put some hands together.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kartik, and it's a pleasure and honor to share my perspective with you on technology and accessibility. I am the co-founder at iSTEM, where we develop accessibility solutions for people with disabilities using the latest advances in AI. As all of us can relate, technology has had a profound impact on our lives, from education to employment, from well-being and healthcare to recreation. It's challenging to think of a life without technology today. But its impact has been even more profound for people with disabilities like myself. It has made what may be considered impossible possible. It has enhanced independence, increased confidence, and basically helped me and others live a dignified life. Over the next 15 minutes or so, I will share my story, how technology has empowered me to do what I wanted to do, what I'm seeing in the assistive technology sector more broadly as a professional in this field, and some considerations when innovating for everyone, including people with disabilities, which, by the way, are over 1 billion people around the world. It all started in 1994. My parents were puzzled. The doctor told them that their son won't be able to see ever, and community members advised them on how they should be ready and willing to support me throughout my life. Education was not important, and careers like music were the only way to go about. But my parents had different ideas. They wanted to make sure that I could get the same education as my sighted siblings. I enrolled in a special school for the blind, where I picked up basic skills such as traveling independently, learning Braille, and using a computer using a software known as a screen reader, which basically reads out everything on the computer screen. The last was a game changer for me. Here was something that I could use on an equal basis as my siblings and could access the vast expanse of information that was available to everyone else. This also meant that I could access the same educational and informational content for the most part as my peers, and that teachers could grade my work at the same time. My school was also very progressive in that they thought that students with disabilities should study with students without disabilities, and that any special resources or support should be provided. This understanding and realization that I should live my life as anyone else, aspire to achieve the same goals as anyone else, get involved in all recreational activities as anyone else was very powerful for me. Now, it wasn't all good. It was challenging to adapt to the new environment, especially coming from a special school for the blind. Teachers did not know how to help a blind student, and I, of course, was also clueless as a 7-year-old. But there was this belief and resolve that we will figure it out, we'll make it work. And this is all that mattered. My mom figured out a clever way, for example, to engage me in art or painting classes, which was completely visual otherwise, by pasting a thread or wool on the outline of the image so that I could also understand the image and also enjoy coloring in the image and in the shapes. In the meanwhile, I started developing a lot of interest for technology. And by the time I was in high school, I knew exactly what I wanted to pursue. I wanted to become a software engineer. But to do so, I had to pursue math and science in 11th grade. And here is where I needed to do some convincing. At that time, the Central Board of Secondary Education did not allow blind students to pursue STEM or science-based courses. I was very upset, as you can imagine, didn't know what to do. My closest friends, teachers, and mentors all advised me to explore other opportunities in academic tracks. But I wanted to pursue science. After a lot of thinking, I decided to challenge the status quo. After a lot of effort, In November of 2010, the board updated their rules to allow all blind students across the country to pursue math and science in classes 11 and 12. I thought I'd won the battle, but little did I know that it was only getting started. I was in class 11, frustrated at the inaccessibility of resources to learn math and science. There were no books that I could read with my screen reader. There were no diagrams in accessible formats that I could understand independently. And above all, there was no support or mentors to look up to. But then something happened that tested my patience. My teacher drew a graph on the board, and of course, I couldn't understand it. That was it. I knew I couldn't take this anymore and decided to give up science. But then I thought back to all of the work that I did to enroll in science in the first place, and I knew I couldn't give up so easily. I went back to music, my hobby, for some relaxation, and that's it. I had an answer for how I could understand visual graphs. What if I could convert the visual graph into sound and then use the variation of sounds to understand the progression or flow of the graph? If the sound or the frequency is increasing, that means that the slope is positive, the curve is increasing, and vice versa. I developed a software that would do just that. This was encouraging, and I knew that I could successfully complete high school science education by thinking out of the box and by leveraging technology. My teachers also realized by then that I'm not going to give up so easily, so they finally decided to join forces with a shared determination to make it happen. And indeed, it did. I not only completed science, but also excelled at it. Technology was a great enabler in all of this. Later, I applied to universities abroad and was fortunate to be accepted to Stanford, where I completed my bachelor's and master's in computer science. Stanford was very different. I had access to all the support, all the resources, everything was great. Opportunities were immense, classmates and professors excellent. But there was something missing, something big. I hadn't changed the situation back home. My juniors who wanted to study engineering in India couldn't. That is when I launched Project STEM Access, that not only worked with the leading engineering institutes in the country to have them change their rules and become more acceptable to the blind, but also provided mentorship and support to students with disabilities. The program has since expanded as it's now an EdTech organization that seeks to provide equitable education and employment opportunities to all people with disabilities around the globe. And this is where I want to transition to talking about accessibility more broadly. Hopefully, I've been able to convince you by now that assistive technology has been an absolute game changer for people with disabilities. But what if I told you that the same technology also prevents people with disabilities to participate in the society on an equal basis and effectively? There are over 200 million youth with disabilities around the world who currently struggle to access digital educational and professional content in accessible formats. Over 97% of the top 1 billion web pages online are inaccessible. Just think about it. Some of your favorite websites, apps that you take for granted that you use every day, they are inaccessible to people with disabilities like myself. This is what we're trying to change using the latest in AI advancements at iSTEM. So far, we've empowered over 2,000 people with disabilities and converted nearly 30,000 inaccessible pages into accessible formats to ensure that everyone has an equal access to information and resources that are available to all digitally. We are on a mission to work with developers, computer scientists, and technical professionals, many like yourselves, to develop accessible software and applications. I know it's not covered in CS curricula, and so we want to bring about that awareness, and we want to help ensure that people, when they code, can develop accessible applications. Let me walk you through the life of my co-founder, Shakul, who also happens to be blind, to give you a better understanding of what I mean.
Click lecture resources. Enter inbox left there 869 new heading level.
What you hear is Shakul's screen reader, a technology that converts anything on his computer screen into voice so that he can navigate the computer independently.
Empty document.
Notice that the screen reader does not read this document at all. This is because this document was scanned as an image, and screen readers don't read images. Using AI, we convert inaccessible documents that include documents with complex layouts, math, etc., into accessible and compatible formats that can then be accessed using a screen reader.
Radian measure. In more advanced trigonometry and always in calculus, angles are measured in radians.
Further, we also work with inaccessible videos, generating high-quality captions and extracting visual content, thus making them accessible. But we also realize that this alone is not going to solve the problem. We need to change attitudes, we need to change mindsets as well. This is where our other programs, including hackathons that bring people with and without disabilities and tech together to hack on problems, thereby developing empathy for each other, our internship programs, fellowships, training, and upskilling initiatives, all of these come together to ensure that we can empower and upskill people with disabilities so that they can compete for some of the biggest companies out there in the most lucrative roles in technology, such as data scientists, software engineering, etc. In summary, what I've realized over the years is that technology and mindset shift both need to happen for us to be able to make a fundamental difference in the disability sector. And that is what we're trying to do through iSTEM. The idea fundamentally is to redefine disability through achievement. And in doing all of this, I'm guided by one mantra, a quote that Dr. Kalam, former president, shared with me. What you need to succeed is not vision, but a vision. And with that, I'd like to thank the organizers again for giving me this opportunity to share my story and perspective on accessibility, technology, and where we're at right now and the potential with you. And I invite you to join us in changing how the world thinks about the abilities of people with disabilities through technology and advocacy. Thank you so much.